Should we get into it? Should we talk about Thunderbolts? Oh, Thunderbolts, Marvel. Chat, how you guys feeling about all this, man? Where's the vibe in the room? Like, are we, it's Jover? Are we feeling like it's okay? I get a lot of mixed messages from people on the old Twitter. You know, I was talking about this briefly yesterday, and I saw a lot of people being like really mad that I was pointing out that this is likely flopping numbers. And there seems to be a large contingent of people that are super mad that we want to point out that this movie's doing absolutely terribly, and that's like we're bad fans or something like that. I mean, look, I love this movie. I've seen this movie twice. We were thinking about seeing it again over the weekend. Ultimately, we did not. But I love this movie, and I really think it's a great film, and I have a lot of positivity with regards to Marvel's sort of decisions to go more in with these characters, to potentially have the director of this movie make the X-Men film. I think there's a lot of positives that you can take away from the movie. But the movie itself and all of the things that make it good and all of the things that make me excited about the future is somewhat of a separate story from how the film is actually performing. And I think it's fair to say that the box office performance of this film is more of an indictment on the state of the Marvel brand than it is an indictment on the quality of this movie, the draw to these actors. Like, ultimately, I think the biggest factor is absolutely Marvel fatigue and the lack of trust that a lot of audiences have with the Marvel brand. And when you don't trust Marvel, and the Thunderbolts seems like a pretty small, insignificant movie, there's not really a large draw to go there. So ultimately, these are completely separate stories. And when we talk about how the film is doing, I think we also just need to be fair here and acknowledge that this is really bad. And the first weekend was really bad. It was in the middle range of expectations. And as I said that Monday, about a week ago, by the way, how many of you were there last Monday? It's just so crazy. Time just keeps on happening, right? Last Monday when we talked about this, I was pretty negative. I was pretty negative on the performance. I was pretty negative on Marvel. I was, just pointing out what I thought was pretty clear in the data. What I had said last week on Monday was that take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Remember that weekend 2 will be the most important determining factor on whether or not I'm right or whether or not the Thunderbolts is performing in a way that will make a lot of the things I'm talking about irrelevant. So what happened? Well, late last week, it was looking relatively good for the Thunderbolts. They had really strong numbers throughout the week. The Tuesday really helped, but the Wednesday was good also. So it starts to look good last week. You know, there's some projections that the drop could be 50% or even lower. I saw some people say, oh my God, it could be under a 50% drop. Now, if it had dropped under 50%, we would be talking, this would be a different conversation. If it had dropped less than 50%, I would come out here and say, this was something like a Black Swan, crazy, oh my goodness, kind of a drop. This thing's going to have some serious legs. Maybe I was wrong. That's what it kind of was looking like was possible late last week. And so over the weekend, it actually underperforms those expectations. And that's important because it just showed that it was week heavy and the weekend itself did not hold the attention the way that they thought. It dropped 55.5%, which is still good. I mean, that is the 8th lowest drop in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, so that is the 8th lowest drop. That is not a bad number to have. So I want to be clear here. It's not that the movie's doing badly. It's that it opened so low that having the 8th best drop is not going to be good enough for this thing to even be profitable. Most likely. Now, again, you could have a crazy scenario in week 3, right? Small asterisks. Thunderbolts asterisks. Small asterisks on everything we're saying here. If weekend 3 is a black swan, then we'll have a whole nother conversation. But that is looking less and less likely. Okay? So this movie opened super soft and had a pretty good hold. It still does not seem to be enough to carry this thing to profitability. One thing this movie has that a lot of other Marvel movies, even the ones that had similar drop-offs, basically what I'm trying to say is this thing's doing really bad in foreign markets, particularly China. It's pretty much over there. Other markets around the world, Thunderbolts is doing way worse than a lot of other Marvel movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that did better not only in their opening, but also in worldwide marketplaces in weekend 2. So it looks like a lot of people just don't care about the Thunderbolts. And frankly, again, that is probably an indictment of the Marvel brand overall, the fatigue that Marvel has accumulated, a lack of trust. And then I think when you then also don't really have a mainstream A-list Marvel character, especially in other markets, that's a big deal, okay? Because you got to think about a couple of things here. A lot of the English, like, have you ever heard that English is like kind of a hard language? I don't know if you know this. You know, throw a 1 into the chat if you speak English. You know, I'm trying to make a point here. English is a weird language. English is a language in which you can cut a tree down and then cut a tree up. And if you try to explain that within the syntax of most other languages, that doesn't make any sense. Okay? English, weird language. My point is, part of the reason that, you know, smashy action movies that don't necessarily have the most affluent of dialogue, part of the reason they do so well in some of these markets is because it's very easy to translate that dialogue. It's very easy to translate that idea. Thunderbolts is a complicated movie about feelings and shit like that. And I just think a lot of it doesn't necessarily translate well. There's not this huge smashy A-list Avenger draw. I think that's probably part of the reason why it's struggling internationally. So, what does this mean for Marvel overall? I think here's a couple of things I'll say, okay? I believe that, and we don't know these numbers, right? Disney holds all of the digital numbers pretty close. I think because the first sales period goes through other distributors, that those numbers are a little bit more public. You know, for instance, you can see what's the number 1 movie on the Apple Store, what's the number 1 movie on Amazon Prime that's rented, you know, all these things, right? But the actual numbers Disney has, and they're not going to give it out to us. But I would imagine that the numbers on like the Marvels, the numbers on Quantumania, the numbers on Captain America Brave New World, even on the digital side of things, are probably pretty fucking bad. You know? Like we had heard that The Flash was a movie that it did so badly in the theaters, but then ironically did very poorly on digital. It never even like hit big numbers on any digital sales platform. The Flash was a movie that was rejected in the theaters and looks to be rejected in the digital space as well. I think Thunderbolts is going to do much better than Brave New World, a lot of those other movies, The Flash as well, on digital. Here's something else that's kind of interesting. I would imagine that Thunderbolts is getting pirated a lot. I mean, what do you think? What do you guys think? Do you think that the new Thunderbolts movie is getting pirated a lot? I mean, I've seen some memes. In fact, maybe one of you guys might have seen one. There was a guy that posted a picture of Thunderbolts on his laptop, and he's like, round 13. And you know what I mean? Like, look, he's probably memeing. Did he really watch it 13 times? Doubt it. But the meme is that, like, people like this movie. You look at the social media, it's doing numbers. That box office is really bad, okay? Here's the point. I think that there are a lot of different ways that Marvel could look at Thunderbolts and be satisfied, particularly when you look at the trends compared to the other films that are similar. There's no way around the bad box office, and I think the box office is, number one, it's really embarrassing. It's a big number you can't hide behind, and Marvel's trying a lot to... I mean, here's the other side of this, right? Like, here's the other side of this. Unfortunately, they threw everything they had at this film, and it didn't work. That looks bad. There's no way around it. You know, the new Avengers thing, that shit didn't work. The screening thing, the post-credits, it didn't work. It's making Eternals money. You know what I mean? And you're literally calling it the new Avengers, right? So all that shit didn't work. and it makes them look bad. In a world where we're going to value the digital numbers, the streaming numbers of a movie that might not profit, I think it's fair to also consider how bad you look in the public square on social media. Isn't that fair? So in that regard, I think that they do have some L's here too, right? The number, but also the effort put in to get the number looks bad. To be honest with you, this number is so bad that I think a lot of people are reconsidering what they think the Fantastic Four movie is capable of and what Superman is capable of. Like, I'm going to be honest. These are really bad numbers, guys. This is like what Minecraft made in one weekend. Okay? Again, I made this point a couple of weeks ago. Minecraft is going to make more than the first two Marvel movies that opened this year. And Daredevil Born Again did not chart at all. Anywhere. So I think this is just a sign of, I mean, frankly, like, because I thought about this weekend, you know what I mean? I was in a little more of a better mood because I was away from YouTube and I was just hanging out with family. But, I thought about it. I talked about it with people. I would say what really is happening is this is the effect of causes that we have been calling out for years. This is actually the same decline that YouTubers and a lot of people that are a little bit more in it have been saying has been happening for years. It's very similar to what happened with Star Wars. With Star Wars, there were many of us saying like, hey man, this shit is declining. And people would say, what do you mean? These movies have made so much money. This show is getting this viewership. And we'd be like, you got to trust me on this. I do YouTube and I make videos and I see how people, I can see the interest is declining. And people were like, no. And then all of a sudden we're canceling shows. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally what it got to. It got to the point of like, oh my God, Mando season 3, 30% down viewership. Acolyte so bad we cancel it. Skeleton Crew, abysmal. Andor, of course, was very low viewership as well. But like, I felt it happening. I saw it happening. And then sometimes it takes time for that to show up in the data. It's like Love and Thunder might have been the movie that broke Marvel, but it took time. That movie still almost made $700 million global. It took time for that damage to accumulate and snowball to the point where you'd have this kind of a rejection from the mainstream audience, right? So the way I think of it, to be completely honest with you guys, is we have been living through this already. You know what I mean? Like, we have all, most of us that are really hardcore have already seen how bad it has gotten. And this is just reality catching up with what we saw going down a year ago, 2 years ago, etc. Ultimately, that is how I look at the situation. And I think Marvel themselves should also look at the situation that way, because that also comes with it the idea that you can't just instantly turn this thing around. I did a video over the weekend. I released it this morning, and it's a comprehensive look at Marvel's new plan. This is stuff we talked about on stream last week with the, sort of downplaying Disney Plus shows, only doing movies, pivoting into the X-Men, what they're doing with the Avengers. It's this comprehensive look at like what their plan is. And I think Marvel's like, yeah, these Avengers movies are going to pop big time, and we need to just make sure from Thunderbolts on that every movie is of an incredible quality. The Doomsday movie will automatically have a much bigger draw than Thunderbolts. I would say Doomsday will probably open close to 300, maybe 400 worldwide, right? Like that's what I think will happen unless the shit gets way worse, right? But the point is, Marvel was faced with a decision when it comes to Thunderbolts. And I think, look, this movie was sort of started a long time ago. So was Captain America. A lot of this stuff was started a long time ago. Thunderbolts was the first one that they were able to kind of wrangle early on, get really competent and good creators in, and craft something truly worthy of like the Marvel audience or what the Marvel audience was. And if they are legitimately making movies to this quality from here on out. I mean, this is kind of like Marvel saying Doomsday will be more than just spectacle. That is a little within the promise of what Thunderbolts is, which again, I mean, most of us have seen this movie. You guys know where I stand with this movie. I love this movie, man. When this movie comes out on streaming, I'm going to watch the shit out of it. It is like, it reminds me a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons movie, right? Which, I came out and said I thought Dungeons and Dragons would make $1 billion. One of my biggest L's to date. I think it ended up like 200-300 or something. I was like shocked. I was like, what the fuck? And, it took a couple of years, but now the narrative is that movie's fucking incredible. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but you look around at the discourse around Dungeons and Dragons, almost everybody that has seen it sings its praises atop the mountain. And most people agree that movie is so good, it deserved a lot more money than it made. Not to go on a total tangent here, but the new Mission Impossible movie is cooking, right? And that movie's coming up soon. It looks awesome. Tom Cruise is hanging off of airplanes and trying to hide the fact that he's dating Anna de Armas. It's been a beautiful lead up to hype. I can't wait to watch this motherfucker run. Let's go, okay? But let's not forget that the last Mission Impossible movie, which is fan-fucking-tastic, also underperformed. Performed about the level of Thunderbolts, actually. Which shocked a lot of people because they were like, wait a minute, Top Gun Maverick. Right? The point is, sometimes you can make a really good fucking movie. And for whatever reason, maybe just the marketing, maybe just where the audience is at, maybe fatigue, I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Now, Marvel is actually like in a better spot than the D&D movie and the Mission Impossible movie because I don't even think it's a fucking mystery what happened with Marvel. I think it's actually very obvious. They burnt everybody out. Right? So my point is this. If you want to honestly report about what's going on with Thunderbolts, it's not doing well in the box office. It will probably lose money. I think it has a much, much better chance to have a positive imprint for the overall brand, and therefore I still think it's doing good work. I think the movie will do better on digital. I think a ton of people that pirated this movie enjoyed it and would not mind seeing more of these characters. I think there's potentially a lot of positives here. However, you cannot look past the box office. The box office is an indictment of Marvel. Thunderbolts is just the first good movie they've made in a while that is suffering because of all the shit they've done over the past couple of years. That's the take. That's my opinion. And I also think that I still think Marvel's going to be okay. There's a lot of questions. I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to lie. I could be wrong. Maybe we should go fill out some applications. To be honest with you guys, I almost got a McDonald's hat and wore it on stream today. And was just like, Thunderbolts did pretty bad. So I filled out some applications. But, in all seriousness, I could be wrong. This could go butt up. But this also might be the floor. This might be the low point. Like this quarter of 2025, maybe 2025 in general, depending on what happens with FF, this could be the lowest. And if you just consider what the plan is moving forward, I think they can dig themselves out of here. But we're going to see. Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel on the podcast feed.